Hello, Rowan. We Damage We. Here with another tag. I've seen a number of people do this tag. It was created by Steve Donoghue, who is, of course, we all know, the king of BookTube. But yesterday, Michael K. Vaughn did it, and his video was great. Please watch it. And I really enjoyed it a lot, and I was like, you know what? I've got a book review in the pipes. Should be out in the next day or two, but in the meantime, let's do another tag, and I'll try and make it less than an hour long. We'll see. So this is the Books and Life tag. Let's go. Number 1. On a scale from 1 to 10, 1 being a normal person, and 10 being the late Howard Bloom, how much are books and reading a part of your life? Well, I can tell you that the average person doesn't read. I'm going to be generous and say that on average, people probably read 1 book a year, because there's tons of people that don't read at all. And most people who read a little bit, and then there's the freaks who read like a lot. So if 1 is 1 book a year, I'm going to give myself it's tough to say. At this point in my life, I'm going to say a 5. I'm going to give myself a 5. It hasn't always been that way. I've mentioned before how in 2020 I only read 3 books all year long. Wasn't a good reading year for me. This year, I'm over 40, but I've also hit kind of a rough patch. I've only read like 3 books in the last month. So, I'm going to say a 5. Because Harold Bloom is like, that's a league of its own. But I definitely read more than the average person. So I think 5, healthy middle. Let's go with that. Question 2. Where does your personal library stand right now in relation to the rest of your life? Do you have more books now than you ever had? Fewer? How has your library changed? So, the most books, the peak for just pure numbers that I've ever owned was probably around 2013. I would have been 23. And it would be when I moved out of my parents' house for the first time. Yes, I did not move out of my parents' house for the first time until I was 23. Thank you very much. I was very poor, and then I was in college, and you know how it goes. But by the time I moved out of my parents' house, I had my bookshelves have never been uniform, like I've always just sort of like inherited shelves here and there, thrift stores, etc. But if I think about like a standard bookcase, like the Billy from IKEA, in my mind is like the standard bookcase, I probably had the equivalent of like 5 or 6 Billy's worth of books at that point in my life. I had a lot. I had acquired a lot and had never really had any need to get rid of any. But then moving out, I got rid of a lot. I left a lot behind in storage at my parents' house. And then in 2015, I moved across country after I got married, so my wife could go to graduate school in Syracuse. And so that got rid of a lot of stuff. And I whittled it down at that point to about... I had 1 bookshelf, but it was like a big bookshelf. It was bigger than a Billy. So let's say 1.5 Billies. So I got rid of like 2/3 of my books. Since then, I have gotten more. I have more now than I did then. I was pretty good for a couple years at like keeping it the same amount. Like when I would get new stuff, I would get rid of old stuff. I still do that. I'm pretty exacting. If a book isn't a 4.5 or 5 star book, after I read it, it's gone. Because in my mind, I'm not going to ever read it again, so I can get rid of it. And if I change my mind and I decide I do want to read it again, I can always just get it again. It's not a big deal. So right now I have probably 2 to 2.5 standard billies. This is going to be, I'm making this a thing. This is a standard unit of measurement in terms of your book, the number of books you have. I have approximately 2.5 billies of books right now, if I had to guess. I don't currently have them on shelves. There's like a shelving system of like built-in to the wall shelves in my bedroom, and I have all the books that I haven't read piled in vertical piles on those shelves. And then everything that I have read before is all in storage in boxes. So it's hard to really gauge, but I'm pretty sure it's like 2 billies worth of books. So it ebbs and it flows, you know? Not the most I've ever had, not the least I've ever had right now, so. But closer to least than most. Question 3. Take a mental step back and ask yourself, what is the most likely first bookish impression a newcomer would have to your home? I think that the average bookish person, if they looked over my bookshelf, would think that I'm pretentious. Probably. I would say that if they had looked at my bookshelf when they were at maximum capacity, it would be worse. But I think that people would think I'm pretentious, probably. And they would, if they didn't know me, like if they were just looking at my books, they would probably, rightly, assume that I am like a cishet white guy. Because what can I say? I am what I am. I have a lot of things that are, I think thought of as pretentious. I've got all of David Foster Wallace's books. I've got all of Pynchon's books. I've got all of William Gaddis's books. Vonnegut. Stuff that, like, pretentious intellectual types, I would call them pseudo-intellectuals, like to harp on, particularly Wallace. I don't have very much in the way of like mainstream literature. At one point in my life, I was a big Stephen King head. My love for him has waned pretty hard. I did try to reread The Stand near the beginning of the year this year and couldn't get through it and got rid of it. And I don't own any Stephen King books anymore. Not a one. I've got a couple of like popular literary fiction books from like the last 5 years or so, most of which I haven't read yet. Stuff like A Little Life or Fates and Furies, Colson Whitehead. But I think that's just gonna make people think I'm pretentious even more, even though they are kind of mainstream. But they're like NPR books, they're books that like basic white people, white liberals who read casually will read because they're like the books that get the big, critical acclaim. I do have a lot of things that are like probably not well known, but I think that as well points to pretension. Knausgaard, that's so pretentious. Does anybody else remember how many fucking people, I knew people who were like living in New York and stuff at the time that my struggle got really big, and it was like everywhere you went, fucking like cool white people who were reading that book. Maybe in my favor a little bit is that I have like a handful of graphic novels and comics, more than like I have more than like a cursory amount, like it wouldn't just be like, oh yeah, you got the basics. I've got a little bit more than that. I'm certainly not like a fucking comic head by any stretch of the imagination. I'm not really into superhero comics. Like I don't really read Marvel or DC that much. But when I read a book that I like, I'll keep it. I've got all Preacher and like Y the Last Man, The Unwritten, Saga, Ex Machina, stuff like that. I've got a lot of Alan Moore. I can't pick it up because there's a bunch of stuff on top of it, but I have like Lost Girls by Alan Moore right next to my desk right now, which is one that most people don't have, maybe for good reason. I think that it's I would say that owning Lost Girls is like a red flag. That's sus to me, a little sus. So I don't think that my books are gonna necessarily give the best first impression. Maybe taking them in context with all of my other collections would be better, but yeah. Let's continue. Question 4. How often, if ever, do you clean or reorganize your books? Clean? Never. I am not a man known for his cleanliness. In fact, I am one of the least cleanly people that I have ever known. Like, to a problematic degree. I would say that at this point in my life, I don't, it's not as bad as, like, when you think of, like Amygdalatropolis. The people who, like, just live on the computer in their room and, like, never leave, and their whole room is just trash. Like, the floor is literally just, like, a foot of trash. I've been there. That I have had that be a problem when I was younger. I've gotten moderately better, but like on my desk right now is like 2 empty bowls and 5 empty pop cans. So I don't clean a lot, and I never clean my books. Reorganizing, not super often at all. Pretty much I just separate fiction, nonfiction, comic books, in that those are all separated into different sections, and then it's alphabetical by author within each section. And I don't really fuck around much other than that. My other collections, video games, obviously, that's always been like, by console and then alphabetical. I used to keep my records alphabetical by artist and my movies alphabetical by title. As those collections grew past a certain point, I don't remember exactly how many movies I have between VHS, Laserdisc, DVD, Blu-ray. It's probably around 1,000. Don't know for sure. But then I started separate. I mean, obviously the DVDs and Blu-rays are all together. The Laserdiscs are all together. The VHS are all together. But I did start separating them out by genre and then alphabetical. Same with the records. Started separating them out by genre and then alphabetical. Just because it made browsing a lot easier when I'm like, I don't know what I want to watch, but I'm like, I'm in the mood for this kind of thing. I can just go to that section and then look at just that. I found that to be very helpful. I did experiment a little bit with DVDs. I think one time I tried doing alphabetical by director, so that the director oeuvres would all be together, which is an interesting idea, but I think isn't as practical. I did also, for a while, separate out all my criterions and sort them by spine number, which a lot of people who collect criterions do. And that's fun because, like, they're all together, and, you know, they're nice, they're artifacts, they're expensive, they're cool things. It makes you feel cool that you've, like, got all these criterions. But again, for, like, practical purposes, not as practical, and also, like, makes finding movies harder because you have to remember what spine number they are. Because when you've got, like, 100 criterions, like me, you know, not to brag too much, but, like, you have to remember, like, where in the order they fall. So I don't reorganize my books very much, and I don't clean them at all. 5. On average, how many books do you acquire in a given week? This can vary very wildly. In the last, like, month, I've acquired 3 books. I went to Majors and Quinn and bought You Will Love What You Have Killed by Kevin Lambert, and ELA DATL by Seshu Foster and Arturo Romo. Those were both on the Dennis Cooper Best Fiction of the Year So Far list, which I made a video on. And then I also bought online Maggie Siebert's short story collection that just came out, which was also on that list. That I bought directly from the publisher, and it is in the mail on its way to me. So, you know, that averages out to 3/4 of a book per week. But in the month before that, I probably acquired 30 books. But then in the totality of 2020, I only acquired 3 books. The 3 books that I read that year. So it really depends on how much I'm reading, how motivated I am to read, and how much money I have to spend at that time. In the last month, I haven't bought anything because I don't have any money. I'm broke as fuck. I'm extremely broke right now. Please give me a job if you see this. So yeah, it can vary wildly. Right now, let's say 1 book a week, roughly. Number 6, what song is your current earworm? Well, for the past month and a half, I've been low-key obsessed with Bo Burnham's Inside, his new special that he put out on Netflix, that he filmed. He wrote, directed, shot, edited, recorded, everything, the whole thing, by himself in his guest house over the course of just over a year during the pandemic. It's mostly, I mean, he's known for music, humorous music, and it's mostly music, songs, with some skits and stuff as well. But I've been listening to the soundtrack from that a lot. So the big earworms from that one have been like All Eyes on Me. Let's say like Shit. That song is a banger. There's a bunch of bangers on it, so that's been a big one. Also, in the last like 3 weeks, month or so, I started using TikTok, which has been absolutely both the best and worst decision I ever made. Because like content on there it has very high highs. There are people making great shit on there, but it also is like the most addictive time sink I've ever experienced. Like you can just lay in your bed and like 3 hours will disappear and you don't even realize it. So it's double-edged sword. But for those that don't know, songs and sounds, so like the audio from a video or just a clip of a song, will go viral on TikTok and be used in the backgrounds of TikToks. And so like often there like memes will generate where people will use a song and then make videos that all are sort of in the same vein using the same song. Like for instance, right now one that's popular is people being chased by the camera and running away for various reasons that are like explained in text on the screen, but it's always set to the song "Nobody" by Mitski. So a lot of songs get come up a lot and then end up getting stuck in your head. And then I, being a fucking asshole, took it upon myself to create a Spotify playlist for myself of songs that get stuck in my head because of TikTok, so that I can easily find them and listen to them when they are stuck in my head. And so like some of the highlights from that, obviously "Nobody," like I just said. "Good for You" by Olivia Rodrigo is a big one. Obviously the Backyardigans have like exploded on TikTok, Into the Thick of It and Castaways. Both are all the time. One that has really been stuck in my head is this like 10-second long piece of audio for a song that's called "Calories" by a man named Tyler Cassidy.
You're about to burn some calories on my dick. I'm about to put my penis between your lips.
Who you may know better from his time in the early mid 2010s as the rapper, fictional character, like satirical rapper, Krispy Kreme, also known as Froggy Fresh, because he got sued by Krispy Kreme donuts and had to change his name. But there's a trend going around where people will film their significant other while this song plays in the background, and it's pretty good, and it gets stuck in my head a lot. Yeah, there's just so many, and so those are all big earworms for me recently. And then the other one that in the last like week has been stuck in my head a lot is "Throw Dem Guns" by Lil Ugly Mane.
Switch to the songs where I'm from. Yeah, I'm getting dumb. Yeah, I'm feeling numb when that herb fill up in my lungs. My swagger acted foul, blacking out. Roofie up my absinthe in the club before I stagger out. Never died, rather take the life.
That's a fucking banger if I ever heard one. I've been listening to that record for... I mean, that record came out in 2012. I think I heard it for the first time in 2014. That has always been in heavy rotation for many years. It was... I care enough. I take the time to curate like top of the year lists in like music and movies and things for myself, just for fun. And that record, Mr. Thug Isolation by Lil Ugly Mane, was in my top 10 records of the decade for the 2010s. And I listen to a lot of music, so I would highly recommend. If you like hip-hop, particularly if you like stuff like early 3-6 Mafia, like, you know, sipping on some scissor, like 90s 3-6 Mafia, like horrorcore stuff, big recommend for Ugly Mane. Great shit. Alright, anyways, let's move forward. Trying to keep this video as short as possible. We're at 24 minutes on the raw footage right now, so not exactly succeeding. 7. What percentage of your self-control do you retain in a well-stocked bookstore? I kind of answered this question earlier. It really is all about how much money I have at the time. Assuming the bookstore is, well-stocked. So like in my mind, I'm thinking Majors and Quinn because that's like the biggest, most well-stocked bookstore here in the cities. If I'm pretty broke, I'll probably only get one book, maybe two. When I was there last, I bought two books. I had no business doing that whatsoever. That was stupid. I really shouldn't have done that. And the only reason I did, my justification, was that my friend I had given them a ride to a party, and they put $20 worth of gas in my car. And I was like, well, I would have spent $20 on that gas, so instead, I can spend $30 on these books. Doesn't really shake out that way, but you know, like, you make it work. So yeah, if I'm flush with cash, I will spend more. But if I am broke, I will spend less. I'm pretty good about, you know, retaining my self-control when I don't have the money to spend. Generally speaking, I just don't go shopping if I don't have the money to spend. I did when I went to Majors and Quinn and spent that money. I was with a friend who suggested we go, and that's always dangerous, you know. And if I had been by myself, I never would have gone. Not to like shame Ellie and like say that it was her fault. It was not at all. But you know, I'm pretty good about it. Number 8. Do you ever feel the need to take a break from books? If so, what form does it take? So, as I've probably made abundantly clear, you know, books are but one of my loves. I love cinema. I love video games. I love music. And I love new media. I watch a lot of YouTube. I you know, TikTok is a new thing in my life. I think that YouTube is an absolutely valid, like, platform. I hate the word content, you know, like I hate content creator. It's like a necessary evil that phrase exists. But like, I feel like it makes it feel like it's lesser than other things. But, so like in the last like 2 months, I've gotten really into commentary YouTubers who do like videos about other influencers or like internet celebrities and stuff, analyzing their content and talking about it. And I think that that's just as valid as any other form of media. And there are people that make documentaries on YouTube, sometimes feature-length documentaries, that are just as good as real documentaries. So, I have a tendency to kind of like hyperfixate on like one type of thing at a time. So, like, for instance, you know, like, let's say February through June of this year, I was like hyper-ass fixated on books. I was reading a lot. Now I am not, and I'm much more like hyper fixated on like new media on like YouTube and TikTok. I'm watching that shit like a lot. But I also am not really like watching movies or TV, not playing video games. But then sometimes I'll go through really intense phases where I watch like 3 or 4 movies a day, every day, for like a long period of time. So like, do I ever feel like I need to take a break from books? It's never like, I'm so sick of books. It's more like my interest shifts to something else, and books just sort of go on the back burner for a while. I do, you know, I think that keeping my interests sort of broad and having like all of these different like artistic styles that I'm interested in helps me, because I can always, you know, keep shifting my focus around so I don't ever get sick of stuff necessarily. It just, you know, takes a back seat for a little while and I move on to something else. So I guess the answer is kind of, I do take breaks from books, but it's not like, I feel like the reason why this channel is a booktube channel, there's a couple reasons. One is that I started it because I was reading a lot at the time, and I found BookTube and wanted to like become part of the community and meet people so I could make friends and talk about books. But also, I think books are like my favorite. Maybe books or music. It's hard to say. Movies. It's hard to say. But I think there's something about books that is really magical in a way that everything else is different. I don't know what I'm saying, but yeah. 9. When you meet a new person, how long does it take for you to bring up books? Well, I don't meet a lot of new people at this point in my life. When I haven't really been on like internet dating very much in the last few months. That's like a hellhole in its own right, right? Everybody who's had to deal with that knows what I'm talking about. It was a pretty like Wild West. My ex-wife and I met on OkCupid in 2011. So that's like, smartphones were like pretty relatively new, like not that many people had them at the time. And it was kind of a Wild West. It was like still kind of a taboo thing to be like, yeah, we met on like a dating site. And then we were together for 9 years, and the online dating has changed so much in the time since, and there's so many apps that have come out since then, and but anyways, when I'm on there, usually when I'm reading profiles, I'm hoping that people will talk about books that they like in their profile, and if they have good taste, that's a good reason for me to swipe right. And if I match with people who say they like books, it is usually like a one of the more common like go-to things for me to like open the conversation with is like, hey, what was the last like really good book you read? Maybe I'm fucking stupid, but like to me that's a good opener. Is like, what was the last book, last really good book you read? Because people want to talk about things that they like, of course. And it also gives you an idea of, the kinds of things this person likes and why, what they liked about them. And I think that you can learn things about people from that. I think that that is a tell. I've only made like one like consistent acquaintance, friend, I don't know what you would call them, off of dating apps, and we talk about books a good amount. So that's cool. Most of my friends at this point in my life are people I met when I worked at the bookstore, or people I met through the people I worked at the bookstore with, and they're all bookish people. That being said, we do have a very wide-ranging tastes in books. I'm sure you all know, just because someone reads doesn't mean that they read the, stuff you like. But that's fine. And I do talk about books quite a bit with my friends. Even though, we're not usually super duper interested in the stuff that each other reads, it's still fun to talk about them and hear about them. And like my friend Ellie is trying to get me to read this like gay werewolf romance book right now. She's very convinced that I'm gonna like it, and I might. I'm not gonna say that I'm not gonna prejudge, but gay werewolf romance is, outside of my wheelhouse, let's say. And but so having most of my friends be from the bookstore, most of my friends are bookish people. How long does it take for you to bring up books? When you're at the bookstore, that's how I'm meeting people. It comes up pretty immediately, right? Number 10. Have you given any thoughts or made any provisions for your personal library after you croak? So I'm not. I have no delusions about this because like I said, I worked in a bookstore for many years. So here's what I want. I want all of my friends and loved ones to come to my house, and this isn't just books. This is all my stuff. My books, my records, my movies, my games. I want them to come together and take what they want. For whatever reason. Hopefully they'll enjoy those things as much as I did. Maybe they'll even remind them of me, and that would be nice. And then whatever's left, you can just get rid of it. That's fine. I think of so in the Twin Cities metro area, there is currently one video store left. Video Universe in Robbinsdale, Minnesota, which is just right next to North Minneapolis. And it's a great store. I go there as often as I can and rent DVDs from them. They have VHS tapes too, and I rent VHS every once in a while from them. But there used to be, for a number of years, after most of them had died, there were two video stores. There was a place called Movies on 35th, which, surprise, was on 35th in Minneapolis. And in 2018, Movies on 35th went out of business. And it was very sad, as a lover of physical media and movies and a lover of video store culture. It was sad. It's an inevitability. We're all hanging on to the past when it comes to things like that. But it was still sad to see it go. And so the day they announced that they were closing on social media, and they were like, tomorrow morning when we open, we're going to start selling off our inventory. And it was like $10 for every DVD, but if you bought two, you got one free. So it was 3 for $20. So $6.66 a piece. So I got there the minute they opened, the next day, and I scooped up a bunch of like Criterions and stuff that I was like, this is a really good deal to get this for $6. I also got like a lot of just fun, weird movies. I believe I bought 20-ish DVDs from them. And I was really happy when I was buying them to notice that all of them had a sticker on the back from Movies on 35th. So now, every time I watch one of those movies, I'll see that sticker and I'll be like, like Movies on 35th may be gone, but it lives on in my heart, and it has its place in my collection. Like Class of 1984. That was a great movie. I bought that at Movies on 35th. Every time I watch that movie, I'm going to think of them. And so I like to think that maybe the same thing will happen with my things when I'm gone. I think of like one time, I think it was Colbert asked Keanu Reeves, what do you think happens to us when we die? And Keanu Reeves said, I don't know, but what I do know is that the people who love us will miss us. And, yeah, I guess that's my final thought on the matter. And final prompt, are you known among your friends and loved ones for your weird and probably unhealthy relationship with books? A bit. I'm probably more known for my weird and unhealthy relationship with weird and unhealthy books and or other media. I think that my book collection is pretty tame size-wise compared to my movie and music collections. My movie collection also is like a lot of weird movies. Especially once I started collecting VHS tapes. Because the whole point, to me, of collecting VHS tapes is finding stuff that you can't get anywhere else. You know, like, it's not like I'm watching VHS tapes because they look good, right? They don't look as bad as people think they do, though, I will say. But the things that you can't get anywhere else are like direct-to-video, B-movies, weird shit, stuff that Joe Bob Briggs would call drive-in movies, right? Horror, exploitation, grindhouse, kung fu, whatever. Weird shit. So I think that the things I'm known for is that. But I did think back to my friend Ellie, who I've mentioned like 17 times in this video for whatever reason. Hi, Ellie, if you're watching. But her birthday was in June, and she had a birthday party, and it was like the first, party since the pandemic started, where there was like people. We had like 10 people there, which was a lot of fun, and we played Jackbox Party, which, if you don't know, is like a video game that's like it's a collection. There's like 7 of them, and each one is like a collection of party games. You put them on the TV, and then you answer questions on your cell phone, and then like everybody interacts, phone and TV. And so we played one that's called Fibbage, and there was one round. The conceit of it is that, like, Fibbage the game will ask you, the player, a question, and you tell the truth. So I got the question, what is the nerdiest thing about you? And I put in the truth. Then everybody else gets asked the question, what is the nerdiest thing about Rowan? And they put in a lie. But you want people to pick your lie. And then it puts all of the answers up on the TV, and you pick the one that you think is true. If you pick someone's lie, they get points. If you pick the truth, you get points, and the truth teller gets points. Everybody fucking voted for a lie when this happened to me. And the lie was, what's the nerdiest thing about Rowan? I talk about books on the internet. And I was like, fuck, of course that's the nerdiest thing about me. The truth I put down was I assemble and paint tabletop miniatures, which is pretty nerdy. But talking about books on the internet is probably nerdier than that. So, am I known for my weird and unhealthy relationship with books? I guess so. Well, guys, hopefully when I edit this I can get it a little shorter, but it's still longer than I want it to be. I was like, I bet I can bang this out in 20 minutes. 43. We're at 43 minutes on the raw feed right now. Thanks for watching, everybody. Good night.